I want to welcome you to the asset class. We are so excited. We're working with the phenomenal Jesse, CEO of Bullseye, RN Consulting, one of the best business coaches in the world. When you want to learn what your numbers mean in real time, how to use those to change your business, to change your relationships with your employees, and to change your lifestyle, because real business owners take vacations. That's when you reach out to Jesse and a whole lot of other things too. Just a phenomenally talented brother.
Absolutely. And my brother Earl, founder and visionary of Tax Erasers. As the company's name implies, the strategic intentionality of proactively erasing tax liability is a component of business that we don't talk about enough. And Uncle Sam is always going to have something to say about that. So if we really want to truly build wealth, the way that wealth is built is by understanding the rules of the game and being able to leverage it accordingly. And the most successful people from a financial perspective, because obviously being successful is subjective, but from a financial analysis, you best believe they have some of the best tax people on the planet advising them on how to avoid the tax liabilities. And my man Earl is the subject matter expert in that space, as well as the various vehicles that enable entrepreneurs and investors to truly build wealth by owning assets that have value associated with them.
Hey, I appreciate that. So with that, you can tell we're about to give you guys some actionable information, but this is our disclaimer. This is going to be for educational purposes because we always encourage you to work with licensed professionals, bonded in the cases need be, with a track record of success. Do your own research. No one else can do it for you. But as you learn more, each one, reach one, teach one, because that's how we learn and grow as a community.
Absolutely. And speaking of growing as a community, you continue to give incredible feedback that you've been receiving from our audience. And the vitality of us not only getting that feedback, but also we're applicable, actually incorporating the feedback into improving the overall experience of the show. Well, in that, as we have spent the last few weeks kind of deep diving into Iran, when we think about what got us to creating this asset in the asset class, being able to speak to your expertise on the wealth management and building side and my experiences relative to truly engineering enterprise value into businesses, that is a unique value proposition that we don't have enough of in the space. So we certainly need to be sticking to that. But I'm curious on your perspective relative to striking the balance, because as I think about all that's going on in Iran, it is very difficult for me to not correlate that directly to business and wealth building, because as the world is changing, as the foundation underneath our feet is shifting in foundational ways like that I couldn't have even imagined, to not be immersed in what we know is going to come as a ripple effect in the future, it almost can be self-defeating to not be paying attention. But at the same time, striking that balance. So how well do you feel that we've been striking that balance from the time that we've incorporated social and political pieces into the conversation, given that those elements factor into business as well?
That's a powerful question, my brother. So I think for the most part that we've done a really great job of making sure that we are not only demystifying civics and some of this political science stuff, but making sure we connect it to how it affects you in your everyday life, whether that's in your business or you are still working a W-2 and you want to retire. All of this stuff has deep, deep, deep ramifications to what life is going to look like for you in the future. And, the conversation started because I make sure to go out and get feedback where people will tell me, hey, you're doing this weird thing on camera. Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to work on that. Making sure we use more pauses instead of verbal fillers. Just little things, just to heighten the experience for you all. Because some people have a neurospicy brain, as the kids call it these days, a atypical cerebral process where ums, ers, ands, and engulf their brain with rage and they can't even hear the message. And then who am I to take away somebody's ability to learn and grow and prosper? So this whole conversation is introspective, where we're talking about Iran, and we're going to talk more about Iran today, but making sure that we also keep the main thing, where we're talking about enterprise value in businesses, where we're talking about shifting tax liabilities into multi-generational wealth and the different assets to plug that in. But in that same breath, we're not always trying to give you what you want to hear, because it would be a whole bunch of, oh, how do I get credit lines? How do I write this off? How do I double my business value on paper so I can sell it right away? Are those things important? Yes. Do you need to have the certain mind piece to even win from that transaction or from that information? Yes. So we're not always trying to give you guys what you want. We are working from a position of giving you what you need in a timely manner.
Couldn't agree more. And where that ties to all of the stuff that's going on in the Middle East, everything that's happening over there, it has already started impacting the United States, but we haven't begun to start feeling what that's going to look like. And just to give some quick context before we get into it deeper, when we think about the supply chains, when manufacturing and production are interrupted, that causes a prolonged ripple effect. In other words, prior to all of this stuff happening, there were a lot of cargo ships that were already on the sea headed to wherever that they were going, whether that be here in the United States or around the world delivering cargo. When all of this kicked off, production itself, the capacity significantly reduced. So they stopped pumping and refining oil, because for the oil to not be able to move out of the Strait of Hormuz, then that creates a whole different kind of challenge. So they've already slowed down production. So thinking about it in the context of going from a consistent year-round production schedule that the oil is pumped and refined, put on the cargo ships, put on the water, and shipped to wherever is going in the world. Well, the piece of the pumping and refining has slowed down. So now there aren't as many ships on the sea. So we're seeing a lot of the cargo that had already been put on the seas prior to all of this stuff happening. That stuff is going to be still landing where it needs to land. But once those ships are no longer, once they've made their drops, it's not like it's a flow of ships that are going to follow those ships that were already on the water before all of this stuff happened. In business, there are costs that come along with operating, and how energy is getting impacted. Again, we have not felt that yet. We feel it at the gas pump, but we haven't really felt anything yet. So, it's important to have that foundational understanding of the ripple effects of all of these things that are going on. But flipping to a more brighter note, bruh, you had an incredible milestone this week in getting your physical location squared away. How did that come about, and how are you feeling?
Brother, I am so excited. That is a positive note. And in this digital world, I've had office spaces before, then COVID happened, and office spaces became very quickly not as important. I've done a ton of business, made a ton of money in coffee shops and bars and all that kind of thing, or I'd rent out a space for a day if I really had to. But being able to have a place where I can hang my hat if I need to, a place to be able to do workshops, a place to consistently train people, a place to do interviews, it is just a stretch goal where, I'm going to bring in a candidate. They're going to see the office. They're like, man, this dude really isn't playing. Jesse and I joke all the time about the fact that we actually do business. Sometimes even filming this podcast, we have to move things around because we're helping businesses. We're helping businesses. We're making sure people are getting taxes back. Yes, you can go back 3 years and recoup tax losses if you're willing to go through the process to do that, and I'll help you do that. If you've been making $330,000 to $400,000 a year, we can do that. You know, so with that being said, I'm beyond excited and I can't wait to see what comes from it. And I can't wait to see the synergies from some of my office mates because it's a pretty large facility that we took some space in. There's an economist and there's a whole bunch of different people in there. I'm fired up.
That's incredible, man. Congratulations, my brother. Congratulations. I've had quite a bit of movement on my side as well. So when I think about investing in one's own self to actually have a skill and the criticality of that in the times that we live in, one of the things that gave me great confidence to step out on my own to build Bullseye Consulting is I know that in the absolute worst case scenario, I always have the opportunity to go and work for somebody else. And, a six-figure salary is going to come along with that. Like I've built up that level of value and expertise within myself. So what I've actually been having conversations with a firm that has contracted Bullseye Consulting to deliver coaching and consulting to the clients that they have secured. So the companies, they're all small businesses, but the revenue ranges between $3 to $30 million. $80 million. I'm sorry, $3 to $80 million. So this venture is gonna put Bullseye Consulting over six figures for the first times in the 3 years that we've been rocking and rolling, and most importantly, gonna create the infrastructure so that I have my own sales pipeline, because I'm coaching my clients on building sales pipelines all the time. And in the process of building out my 7 systems infrastructure that I coach my clients on, the focus on my internal sales pipeline kind of got set to the side. So now with this venture, that's going to be, at the foresight, or at the forefront rather, of priority to build the sales funnel infrastructure that is consistently attracting, nurturing, and converting those that have unique business problems and are seeking tailored solutions towards those challenges. So it's interesting because one of the things that I have been really, like, every now and again, like, I have my moments where I'm just like, golly, man, I miss traveling, bruh, because I would be on the in and out of the airports, in and out of rental cars, in and out of hotels all over this country doing the consulting thing. And for the past 3 years, I've been stationary here in Colorado Springs, building everything out and going in and updating all of my profiles. I had to re-register for TSA PreCheck and get my Clear membership started back up, and updating all of the airline apps and the hotel apps and the rental car apps and all of those things, my entire travel apparatus, getting all of that stuff back in place, because, yeah, man, I'm getting ready to be hitting the road time again. But the beauty of it is twofold. For one, this has been the easiest 6 figures that I've ever negotiated. Like, I never could imagine that it would be that simple to, the conversations were just, it was like real quick. You know what I mean? And it's a testament to the amount of investment that I've put into myself over these years, because regardless of how the conversation is going, the scale of value that I'm bringing to it is in a different space because I've conditioned myself to be there. So super exciting, bro. Super exciting.
Man, I'm proud of you. Like, let me be the first to say, like, congratulations, black man. You built that. You deserve that, and tenfold for what's coming down the road.
Appreciate you, my brother. And ditto.
That's ill. Like, and you said it's the easiest six figures. It's so simple. And I hope people didn't miss that because of the investment that you put into yourself. There was a roundtable discussion that I was a part of this morning with one gal. She has over 1,000 rental properties now. And she started from nothing in maybe like 2012 or something. Super cool black lady. She has this perspective. There's another dude there, younger black dude. He had 40 rental properties at one point, and he got rid of all of them because he's like, I'm only rich on paper. This money isn't actually hitting where I wanted to hit. You know what I mean? He's like, I tell people, oh, I got this and that. He's like, but I'm not actually cash flowing that much. So it caused him to change over, and he got really big into storage facilities. Both of them talked ad nauseum about how much they invested in themselves, about going to workshops that lead to nothing, about buying programs to get expertise on something. And you find out the dude's a hacker, the gal's a scammer, and you're going and you're going and going until you're like, aha, and the whole picture gets crystal clear for you. And then you just keep working because you're working this whole time. You're getting scammed, you're working. Your best friend decides they don't want to be a best friend anymore, you're working. Your business partner that said they're going to take a bullet for you, now they're working with the competition, you're still working. And you're working and you're working and you're working. But here's the thing, I'll never say that the work is easier, but I'll just say it's clearer and simpler because you've become bigger and better and greater. Like Secret to the Millionaire Mind, T. Harv Eker's one of the best books you guys can go read. And I think about the book all the time. And one of the chapters he talks about whenever a problem arises, it lets you know how big and powerful you think you are or how small and weak and fragile you think you are. So the problem arises. Boom. At that point in time, do you decide, hey, I'm running through this brick wall? It doesn't matter what it takes. If I gotta go Naomi Campbell and I gotta headbutt through this thing, like I'm going through this wall or I'm gonna die trying. That's you knowing that you are bigger than the problem and that the problem is part of the process. A lot of people look at failure and success as if they are two different things. They are on the same track, they're just different stops. You got to go through Failure Town to get to Successville. There is no other way it gets done. So I love that, man. The time, effort, and energy that you've put in yourself professionally, personally, emotionally, where you can manage that deal now and you're gonna do great things with the money just to scale versus someone who hasn't done that work and maybe they stumble into a deal like that. Man, they about to blow that money up. Cards about to
Bro,
be smoking.
son. So like my strategy is a race to zero. And when I say race to zero, I mean the revenue that's coming in, I'm on a race to bring it down to zero by it going right back out in the form of investment back into the company. You know what I mean? Like it's different. But you said something that I want to really put a emphasis on. There are a lot of opportunities that people have and they will not explore them because they don't have a paycheck associated with them that they can see, that they can readily see. If I did not leverage opportunities that were given to me that did not have an immediate paycheck associated with them, there's no way that I could be where I'm at and like understand the things that I understand. There have been so many times that the currency that I was compensated in was knowledge. that can never be taken away from me. It's critical that we're not allowing ourselves to be dissuaded from growth because we can't see an immediate payday associated with it. That investment into yourself is the payday when you do it the right way.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was just talking to my partner, Anthony. So I'm opening this office with my partner, Anthony, and my partner, Jason. Anthony's been a great help. He picked the spot out. He had the connection to the certain chamber that runs it and runs money through it and all that kind of good stuff. So shout out to Anthony. But we had that exact conversation because right now Jason and I are waiting on large payouts from business that we've written. Jason's waiting on big payouts. The bigger business that you do, normally, depending on what your business model is, the longer it takes to get paid. Well, my guy Anthony, he did like $17 million in ERC credits. You remember when ERC was a thing?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
helping these businesses get credits for running their business and keeping the economy up. He helped with about $17 million that went out to help businesses. How awesome is that? So he gets paid like a nice check. However, it takes like 18 months for him to get his first check. People are like, so what was he doing for 18 months? Working, speaking, doing coaching, running his cleaning business, talking to people like me where I'm like, hey, you need to look at what I'm doing. It will be a great partnership. And it took a little while, but then it's like, yeah, it's been a fantastic partnership. We have very different personalities. We have extremely different life experiences and professional experiences. And we're very, very good at very different things. That's what you want in a partnership. A lot of you guys want to clone. You want to say, what's up, twin? And have a 20 twin twin, but then y'all only make a 20 twin twin. You want to work with someone who is radically different than you because they're going to have different strengths, different weaknesses, and different views. Just like Jesse and myself, we are radically different when we talk about like personalities and energy, how we interact with people, a lot of that. But we are both aligned because we are dead serious about building multi-million dollar brands and helping multi-million dollar brands to enhance their value through the combination of business consulting, enterprise value, tax strategies, wealth strategies, risk mitigation strategies. It all fits together. Nothing is isolated. This segues perfectly into what is going on in Iran right now. So, bam, we coming right back to Iran. I told you we was going to do this. Not right now, but right now. So, look, I want to kind of talk about the economics of this because this has to be the least economically efficient military action, war. It's interesting to see people are just calling it straight up acts of terror. And we're talking about people that were former high ranking U.S. military members that are calling it straight up terrorism. I'm gonna let Jesse tear all that up when we get to that part. I just want to talk about the economics of it. Now, you guys will remember Operation Iraqi Freedom and what happened there and how many billions of dollars were spent every couple of days for several years to really no effect, to where we completely depleted the infrastructure of a country. We found no weapons of mass destruction. We had altercations with Afghanistan again, and we just spent all this money. And then we created a vacuum where if we did not give them money, then their currency completely deflates. We've done this to many other nations before through military action. It's kind of what happened between World War One and World War Two, where what we did in that war and how we put this giant debt on certain countries and then they become radicalized. It's like, oh, imagine that. You take away all of somebody's money, their food, their resources, and they want to kill you and your bloodline. Imagine that. Crazy, right? So with this vacuum, the United States has to send pallets of US dollars to them over and over again just to support their economy. Because if it completely collapses, there's a 300-mile border that goes in between Iran and Iraq. So with that 300-mile border, all these different businesses and shell companies are created. Do you think there's a slight possibility that people from Iran could just kind of hopscotch over the imaginary border? Because we always think about borders being giant fences and mountains and walls. It's not like that for every nation, and it's not like that on every place of the border. That's just not how it is. People go to and fro for trade, for work, for other things, for romantic relationships, for religious experiences. It's a whole bunch of things. So there are many credible sites and credible sources that say these Irani folks will cross over with shell corporations that are supposed to be Iraqi businesses. So they're taking the US dollars and then they're using that money in Iran. And Iran is who we have been sanctioning and trying to control this whole time. We talked about sanctions on the last two episodes, where it's essentially some governance to control you and your currency. So it's crazy. We are literally paying for three sides of the war right now, possibly four or five if you consider the other countries around us that have collateral damage, that are our allies, that we're already giving money to, and they're depleting, some of these resources and assets that American money has built. So if you were doing the math right now, the United States is paying Iraq and through proxy directly paying Iran, who they are sanctioning, who they are spending $1 billion a day to bomb, attack, to let munitions go. And at the same time, we have USAID, we have food drops, we have all these other things that are also coming from the United States government. So we are paying all the way around. So everybody's getting paid but Earl and Jesse on this.
It is nuts. We talked about it in the last episode. Both Iran and Russia are making the most international revenue that they've had in a very long time. This whole thing is just kind of crazy because when it initially kicked off, they still haven't given a solid, cohesive message around why we're doing all of this stuff. But for it to now be a situation where the Strait of Hormuz being closed has now become a situation in which I can't see a world in which the Iranians just give up the leverage that they now recognize that they have relative to the Strait of Hormuz, that they had not been actively exercising. Like, there was always the opportunity for them to shut it down. But now they are seeing it in real time, how much of an impact that has on the global economy, but most importantly for them, their own, right? They are making more money than they have in a very long time because they are controlling that straightway. And as the United States is talking about putting troops on the ground, which is absolutely insane. It's like, what does that lead to? Because in order to keep the Iranians from taking that space back over, that means we got to stay there and occupy. So it's like nothing that we're doing is going to lead to, I don't know.
It's so illogical that is hard to talk through. Like, I recognize that. It is so illogical. It's like, okay, so the Strait of Hormuz was open. Oil was cheaper. There was already an agreement signed about enriched uranium and also what munitions they could have, how many they could have. All of that stuff was already agreed upon because that's something that President Obama signed in. Then that was torn in half. F that. We're not part of the UN anymore. We're not part of this. We're not. It's absurd. When I look at the three countries that did not agree with the UN that the transatlantic slave trade is the worst thing to happen in human history, and to see the United States listed on there, it is out of control. And Argentina and Israel. I thought for sure I was gonna see like Russia on the list. It's like, no, Russia's like, no, it was really bad. Oh, okay. Russia? 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 Russia. So we're in this weird quasi like reality where it's just hard to even discuss. It kind of makes me think about, I think it was on episode 5 here where we were talking about Apple and how Apple's seen a great decline. You know, they went from having a brand new phone every 5 months to now they have a new phone every 14 months. And I always make sure to have a super affordable version too. They didn't used to do that before. Their economics have completely changed. They stopped innovating, but also the ironic part, they didn't have a long-term vision to manufacture in the United States and just pay workers what you should. They wanted to maximize the amount of money that they could have, so they sent it off to China. And because it's been over at China, all the different chip developments, start making chips in China and whatnot, then China has the technology to create all of its greatest competitors. So when you see the OnePluses of the world, when you see different Sony, like all this different stuff, they created all of their greatest competitors that are eating their market share, and or companies that end up having to be purchased by Apple just so it's not a competitor. It's like we're doing that exact same thing, but worse. Because in that deal, people don't die. Right now, we're talking about little girls dying. We're talking about children that don't have clean drinking water, that had clean drinking water. We're talking about American businesses shutting down. We're talking about European businesses shutting down because the cost of oil has gone up. How am I supposed to cook? How am I supposed to prepare? How am I supposed to get there? How am I supposed to haul this lumber that needs to be hauled? How are we going to make these roads because we can't afford to fuel our trucks anymore? So now there's a bridge that's collapsed, but we don't have the money in our infrastructure to go fit it. So everyone is feeling the pain, and it definitely feels like we're on the wrong side of a James Bond plot. Like, if there was a way to very quickly alienate our nation, push away our closest allies, destabilize Homeland Security, destabilize the FBI, the CIA, to just, I'm at that point you are where it's just getting crazy to just say it all out loud.
And
What?
the military is being destabilized as well. There have been multiple reports that commanding officers in the military are tying this whole Iran war to some biblical stuff. Having raised my hand and was administered the oath of enlistment to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and understanding that religion isn't supposed to factor into any of that. As human beings, we're entitled to believe in what we believe in. And the military mantra has been that the religious side of things, no agenda is being pushed. Well, we now have a Secretary of Defense that he speaks about it in a way that I haven't seen a Secretary of Defense speak, or a commanding officer, or senior military leader. Like, I've never seen a senior military leader speak about religion the way that he does. And there's a cost to that because, again, everybody doesn't have the same beliefs. So the last thing that we need are for members of our military to be questioning the orders that have been given to them because there is a religious component to it that conflicts with their spiritual beliefs. That's dangerous territory, and we are flirting with it in a profound way.
If I may, real quick, just to make it's a bold statement. and it's going to offend some people, but I feel like it needs to be said. We are a nation about freedom, not absolute. Freedom of speech means you also have the freedom to be offended. Freedom of religious practice means you have the freedom to not be religious or to express your spirituality in whatever discipline or multiple disciplines that serve you best. Anyone who has ever been on a base, if you've ever been around any platoon, you don't even have to go up to a battalion, just, a small unit. It is the most diversified group of people you have ever met. It's the country dude. It's some dude that came from Mossad. It's some gal from Mexico City. And they are completely different, but aligned for one reason, and that is fighting to protect the Constitution and to protect and serve citizens of the United States and her allies. Like, that's what everyone rallies around, creating extra division when we already have low morale. And if you talk to any recruiters, I talk to them all the time because they always try to recruit me. I'm like, boy, I'm 36 and this knee clicks. You don't want this. Y'all gonna pay out 100% immediately. You don't want me.
You know, the Army raised their enlistment age to 42.
Yeah, and I heard that they're thinking about raising it to 45, to go past 42, and to change it so it's not just a minor conviction like smoking marijuana, so that it is a hard felony, that they'll take those as well. So we got to see if they stretch it that far, which is alarming. When I talk to these recruiters and they tell me people don't want to join because they feel like they're not going to have good leadership. That has never been the issue my whole life, living in this military town, living on Fort Carson. That was never it. You didn't get into the military because it didn't fit you. Maybe you're afraid and you think that you can only do infantry, and you learn, oh, no, there's a million different jobs you could do. There's a million different ways you can serve your country. And then people learn about the benefits, and there's so many different reasons to serve. But it's probably the first time we've ever had in the United States where people are consistently worried about religious practices, to this level at this day and age, whatever sexual practice you have going on and all that kind of stuff, where it's like, man, we already have low morale. We already have all these things going. Bringing in a Christian nationalist perspective probably isn't going to help in this case. You're only going to appease the people that are already that.
And everybody that's not, it's dangerous, bro. I'm not the one to make an emotional argument about none of this stuff, or to be acting like my hair is on fire. Like, that's not the case. The reality is this stuff is dangerous. And when I say dangerous, it's dangerous for our national security, because when folks that are responsible for protecting the rights that we oftentimes take for granted are questioning why they're even doing what they're doing, and reading news clips where, like, I can't imagine if I was still wearing a uniform and, I look at the news story and I see that the Secretary of Defense removed 2 black people and 2 women from the general officer promotion list, and watching how the president fired the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, which is a black man. Watching all of these things happen, the conversations that they had about the former Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, a black man. If I was still wearing the uniform, that would be challenging to just sit and watch and not have a perspective on that could potentially impact what I'm there to do, or how long that I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
This stuff is dangerous, bro.
It makes us so much weaker, because when I think about, like the Black Engineer of the Year award and event, it is a gala of, dark colored men that are the smartest engineers in the United States. We're talking about the brightest of the bright. Having a engineering type of mindset is perfect for 9 out of 10 things that you can do in the military. There's no way that it doesn't help you to be great with your spatial proficiency, with numbers, with thinking quickly, and having an adaptive brain to solve problems. That sounds like the perfect person to do a whole lot of different things, from intelligence to like, I could go on and on and on. That has been the number one hotspot for recruiting for the U.S. military for the last 25 years. Because very quickly, as we start to infiltrate different societies and different groups, they realize if they only have 5'9" white guys with blonde hair and blue eyes, these organizations are just like, hey, no blonde dudes with blue eyes. He's American. He's a spy. Like, get out of here. So you have to start bringing different people in. And beyond that, different people bring a different experience. One of the greatest things someone ever said to me, I was at the Big 12 Black Leadership Conference with my Black Student Union, talking to this guy. He's going to a PWI. He's going to an Ivy League one. Really cool, dark-skinned brother. And he's just like, he's trying to get his experience around. He was there on a scholarship, of course. The school was crazy expensive. He came from modest beginnings. Someone's like, man, aren't you glad that you got the opportunity given to you to be here amongst all these people? Some of the brightest minds here. And he's like, and I am one of them. And I am enriching your college experience. And that's why you paid a tuition. And that's why they gave me a scholarship. Because without you meeting people like me, without meeting people like her, this girl who's Native American, her family's land was wiped out. She has the whole history of it, and she's giving you her perspective, and we're all helping you become a better person. We're all helping you become more proficient in just the way that you think. Imagine being at this college with 10 people like you would learn nothing. And I was like, oh, DeMarco, like that is a mic drop. It's, there it is. That is a mic drop if I've ever heard one. So think about that. That is just a college experience. Imagine being an intelligence officer.
All of this stuff is very touchy, interesting to kind of watch it all kind of play out. Now, as you're seeing all of the things that are going on right now, is there a way for us to avoid a global depression from your perspective?
No, I want to say there most likely isn't one, because we were already looking at multiple different factors that could create a great recession, but we're just slamming on the brakes on different commodities that are staples for the economy. Like two of those directly in this war, when we're talking about oil and when we're talking about fertilizer. Cost of food has to go up even more because it costs money to get the fertilizer there. And if we can't grow the food, where are we going? Nowhere. We're going to perish. We're going to perish. So I think we're in a situation where there's so much fake money out there. Like, this real estate market has been hyperinflated for a long time, not just in the United States. I'm not just talking about primary residences that families stay in. I'm talking about multifamily. I'm talking about commercial. I'm talking about some places where the land valuations are absurd. And it's all been held up by fake money. A lot of it was held up by private equity. Private equity, folks always say that to try to make it sound smart. It just means it's a company that's not publicly listed that put money into something. Some of these folks are not that intelligent. Some of them barely have, and not to say you have to go to academia to be intelligent. Some of these people have a very modest education, and they are using the influence of others to purchase assets, and they are more about control and power. So with all these factors happening at the same time, it's very, very likely that we have a huge pullback. The unfortunate thing is that for every, and I hope someone checks me in the comments, but for every 1% the GDP goes down, I believe it's 30,000 people die. It just moves and moves and moves. And I don't think it's linear. I think it gets exponential just because of mental health. People not being able to afford insulin, people not feeling the will to live, people feeling like they lost their honor. Where when you swear and you feel this a business that you build with someone and you're an entrepreneur and you lose that and you've been working there 20 years, 15 years. Oh, I've gotten emotional after 3 years when I thought about how many millions I made a company, that didn't want to give me 300,000, let alone 100,000, but I made you $3 million. It's out of control. So to answer your question, it's like I think it's unavoidable. So what we have to do is get smarter. There are so many changes that our admin wants to make. One of them is to your 401k. And before I get in that, did you have a point that you wanted to bring on this
Yes,
topic?
yeah. So, you mentioned about the oil and fertilizers, which that is critical in itself. But another piece that we're not really talking about enough is helium. And given that helium is used to produce the chips that power the AI. All right. So if we rewind back to last year and the president coming and boasting about all of this money that he was able to get from other countries, these foreign investments. Well, historically, and we've spoken about it on this program in the past, but the petrodollar, as the Gulf countries sold oil in U.S. dollars, they would then dump those dollars into the stock market in order to make more money. Well, this current administration has bet hot heavy on AI. It's not hard to see how it panned out that way. Like when you look at his inauguration, he was surrounded by the leaders of AI in tech. So thinking about the amount of foreign investment that was put into the stock market, specifically betting on AI. Well, now the chip manufacturing is going to be impacted significantly based on the helium constraints. And with the oil being constrained as well, that impacts the availability rather, and pricing of energy, which AI consumes quite a bit of it. So, when we're talking about these data centers, and that was like a point of contention around the country prior to all of this stuff going on, like people waking up and saying, hell no, you can't put one of them data centers in my city, because there's going to be a significant adverse effect to our way of life and how much that we spending on our energy. Like, hell no. Those types of debates were already happening before all of this. Now, with energy prices going through the roof, I can't see where the AI is going to have the runway that it needs to be the savior of the economy that this administration has put all its bets on. Because again, between the energy being constrained the way that it is and those chips, and the Gulf nations, they're going to have to invest in rebuilding their infrastructure, which we ain't seen all that's going to happen to the infrastructure, because our fearless president has made another grand threat to Iran. Y'all don't make the deal, we going to obliterate all of your power plants and your desalinization and all of it, all of these different war crimes that he's just broadcasting out there. Well, the Iranians have said, if you hit us, we hitting who you care about. And who you care about are the people that are feeding the world economy. Go ahead and fuck around and find out. That's basically what the Iranians have said. So I don't doubt that at some point those attacks are going to happen on the utility infrastructure, even more so in Iran. And when that does happen, they are going to retaliate, which is interesting because, you listen to the Secretary of Defense or the president, and they're talking like, we done annihilated their military capability. The Secretary of Defense said, we have an agreement with Iran to split the sea, and they have the bottom half of it. It's like, oh, yeah, you talking that talk. To say something like that, but literally, Prince Sultan Airbase in Saudi got bombed with ballistic missiles and drones. And one of our military's It's basically like a mobile command post. So, when there are strategic decisions to be made and reconnaissance information to be collected and analyzed, that is the mobile infrastructure for that. The Iranians just blew one of them up in Saudi and injured a lot of our service members. So our elected leaders are telling us that we are annihilating these people, yet the missiles are still flying and hitting their targets. It's not like hitting empty fields or something like that. The bombs are landing on target from Iran. So when the United States or Israel does finally attack the Iranian utility infrastructure, the retaliation from that is going to be insane. I'm saying all of that to say the Gulf nations are not going to have the capital to dump into AI and the stock market, even if they wanted to, because they're going to have to rebuild their infrastructure, which it was UAE, I want to say, that said it's going to take them at least 5 years to rebuild what has already been damaged. And again, all of the damage ain't happened yet. It's all of these forces that are at play, and this war is just deepening. So as a point, I don't see how we don't hit a global depression. I don't see how we avoid it. At this point, it goes back to, I believe, the point that you were getting ready to get into, which is how we prepare for that. Was that the direction that you were going in?
Yeah, most definitely. Now, there are many people trying to open up money because they want to save the stock market. And if you don't know the history of the stock market, essentially in the late 80s, all these products were created. So we had like Universal Life, Index Universal Life. We saw the IRA, the 401k, all created stemming from the late 80s to through the 90s because there was not enough money in the stock market for these titans of industry to make super wealth, where they're able to make billions of dollars because there needs to be enough currency to be able to float and basically enter and exit a trade. So a lot of time there's FUD that's created, and FUD is an acronym that is basically like fear and confusion to make the public think one thing while another thing's happen. It's super easy for them to do this to crypto because in the crypto space, there's not one project right now that is big enough for it to be a real currency. Bitcoin got close and it will eventually get there, but normally you need to see a few $1 trillion in one asset before it becomes a real currency. And then it has stability, and you see things get measured in that currency. Right now, we still measure Bitcoin in US dollars. So it's not there yet. And with all of this, we're in a very similar position where our government knows we need more money to float the economy, well, to float the stock market. Stock market and the economy are two very different things. We've been hearing about game-changing growth in the Dow from certain people. And we've been hearing about how well tech is doing while people are complaining about being able to feed their kids. So stock market and the economy are two very different things. The idea is to open up the ability for you in any of your qualified retirement plans. So any defined contribution or defined benefit plans that you have with your jobs to invest in alternative assets. So this would be gold directly. This would be investing in real estate, in different real estate funds. This would be anything that is alternative. And it looks like there's a great chance for this to go through. And it can be advantageous for some people because they're going to get educated. They're going to do their research. They're going to reach out to licensed professionals with a track record of success, and they're going to capitalize. But there are a lot of people who are not, or they might pick the wrong thing at the wrong time, lose their money. And if we listen to Dalbar, who are experts on the psychology of trading and investing, your average person sells when they should be buying, and they buy when they should be selling. Just because the way we've been conditioned since we were jits to be followers and to not be contrarian thinkers. We have to really put it amongst ourselves to be that type of person. So with that being said, it might be time for people to contribute less to their defined benefit plans because those are not liquid, and I'm not a absolutist, so I'm not a Dave Ramsey. I'm not going to say everybody needs to stop putting money in your 401k. It makes a great clip and a bunch of people goes and look, but there's not anything that everybody should do. But for many Americans, they should start thinking about repurposing that money. If you've been contributing 5% to your 401k, and we think that there's a chance that we're going to go into a global depression, what if you didn't fund that money there and you put it into different safe liquid options? CDs, your savings, and then from there you could put in other safe stuff. So that way you have both liquidity and growth. Remember, cash is a position. It's not always about how many positions you have in the stock market, how many doors you have in real estate. Sometimes looking at something and saying, actually, I'm going to keep this in my pocket is the best position that you can be in. Now, I know there's people already thinking, but if the stock market crashes and I can buy in low, then I can ride it up high. You can absolutely do that. Most people have a problem with figuring out what low is. Most people don't really have options in your 401k where you can dollar cost average at a low price to really win on that kind of deal. Because you're going to have to hold, let's say you have to hold for 7 years to get to the high. Do you have 7 years where you can go without touching any of this money? You got enough savings on the side. You've invested enough in your skills where if AI disrupts your market and you lose your job, you still don't have to touch your 401k, and you're confident you could either get another job that pays just as much, if not more, or start a business that could pay you just as much, if not more. Like, how many people are in that position? Probably not enough. So this could be a time where you shift your money into safe liquid savings. You could always look at municipal bonds. Where we live in Colorado Springs, they have a pretty good strong return. You look up your city, you're able to invest directly in your city. If your city is healthy, then it's a pretty good return. And because you live there, it's a tax-free return. A lot of times I tell clients this is a great way to place money for savings without paying taxes. Because I've had clients sell a house, first time they've ever gotten a $2,000 check, whatever the number is, and they put a bunch in savings, they pay off their debt, they buy a couple nice things for themselves, and they get another house. And they're just having this money chill over there. They get to the end of the year, and they're like, this is crazy. I had to pay $6,000 in taxes for my money sitting in a savings account. And I was like, I know, right? You made money in there. This is one of the best things I could ever teach you guys about tax strategy. You want to make sure that your wealth accumulation direction is up and that your tax liability direction is down. If your tax liability is correlating with your wealth, you will always pay more taxes. And the way the system is made here in America, it really starts to compound. When you get RMDs, required minimum distributions in your 401k, that means you didn't spend enough money. And Uncle Sam says, hey, I didn't get all those tax dollars. You remember when I let you put the money in tax-free? That was a loan. The first hit is just for free. You got to pay me. The government goes depot on you, and they force you to take 50% out of the account. Well, actually, to keep it simpler, if you don't take the predefined number for your age and your amount of income, you get a 50% tax. And they tax you 50% over and over and over until they've accumulated enough tax dollars where they say, okay, we got our money. Then at that point, you just pay regular income tax on the money you pull out, which could still be 50%. So anytime you talk to a tax pro that's in the know, I just took a few clients through some discovery calls, and I got one of my CPAs on there. People are like, you have CPAs? Yes. CPAs are important. They're compliance officers, and they make sure that you and I stay out of federal orange. They are so good at doing the, I guess, the financial analysis part of your account. As a tax strategist, I'm coming up with the big tax strategies. They're tying up every single thing down here with tax code. You need both and more, and you need a bookkeeper, and you like I could go on and on. But when you talk to a tax pro that's in the know and they actually know wealth management, they've actually had wealthy clients, most of them call a 401k jailed money. I like to call it incarcerated funds. So I'm like, look, I want to help you free up those incarcerated funds so they can do more good for you. What if I could help you take that 401k? You got $400,000 in there. What if I could help you convert that into a Roth, tax free, using none of the money? And over the 2, 3, 4 years, however long it takes, depending on how much money you have, could take 6 years. If you have $6 million, we got a client like that right now. One of my partners does. When we convert this money over for you, there will be more money in your tax-free bucket than you started with. And then you can do whatever you want with that tax-free bucket. You've gotten Uncle Sam out of your retirement. One of the best ways I could describe poor tax planning is with the 401k, and I'll land the plane here. Imagine, Jesse, I hit you up and I'm like, Jesse, you got motion, I got motion, bro. Let's make a wave. Let's start a business. Jesse's like, okay, what are we talking about? Well, look, you're going to work really, really hard for 40 years. You're going to put all the capital. You're going to make sure it's very successful. And then once you do, I'm going to come in and I'm going to take my part from it, and I'm going to take as much as I want. I don't know how much I want now, but I know I want some. So it could be anywhere between 25 and 75%. Cool? Man, Jesse would slap my hand so fast at the speed of sound. Get out of here. But that's exactly what you're doing in a 401k. You are saying we have known tax rates today. We are in low tax rates today. You're in a 22, 24. Maybe you're in a 28, maybe you're in a 32. We're talking about the lowest tax rates that have existed in modern times for Americans. And instead of just paying the taxes on the dollars now and putting it in vehicles, you could still invest in the stock market. You could still invest in real estate. With tax free, that's a whole conversation that we can have about self-directed IRAs and how you can buy real estate and all this other stuff. Anyways, paying the tax now, paying the tax on the seed, so you have a tax-free harvest. It just makes so much more sense, and it makes a whole lot more dollars.
Don't believe me, just watch.
Yeah, that part. Again, when we have these conversations, I got to keep putting it. This is almost like disclaimer part 2, that as we're having these conversations, it is not to inject fear into the market or how anybody is moving. It is to create the level of awareness so that we collectively can stay ready, so we never have to get ready. It's been my man Earl.
My boy Jesse.
It's been the Asset Class.